Hallucinations. Voices in your head. Dark, suppressed memories. These are not used as a simple scare tactic, nor are they simply a plot twist used to explain away the story elements that don't add up. These devices are clear and present from your very first moments in the game, as you travel a river to the shores of hell.
No more stories after this one.
Because Hellblade isn't a horror game with a mentally ill character. It is a story about mental illness and the horrors that can come with it. Ninja Theory has taken a giant leap away from the common portrayal of the insane, and found a way to humanize the condition by making it an extremely personal experience. Hellblade may not be the game that has something for everybody like a big AAA title would try to offer, but what it brings in that absence is an experience that will be everything to some people. Inside all of us, there is darkness. It is dark because we do not yet understand it. It is this unknown nature that brings people to fear the darkness, whether within themselves or others. For someone with mental illness, that darkness is far more prevalent, as even today we know surprisingly little about mental disorders. It is this darkness that someone with psychosis might live in, experiencing things that to them are reality but the rest of the world don't exist. Living in a constant state of wonder of whether what you hear or see is as real to everyone else as it is to you. It is an extremely tall order to attempt to recreate these feelings in such a short span of a 7-hour game. And while granted, I myself do not have psychosis and have never experienced these symptoms firsthand, I think Hellblade has done an exceptional job of portraying this condition in a way that at least helps the player better empathize. One of the most brilliant aspects of this game is the subtle ways in which they pull off this immersion into the mind of Senua. Games have been trying since their birth to connect the player to the character they are controlling. One of gaming's most well-known faces, Link, is even a direct nod to this concept. But for the most part, these connections force you to forego your awareness of self and pour your imagination into these characters. And while that is also true of Hellblade to some extent, they have an incredibly fresh take on this connection that beats down the wall of distinction between you and the character, at some point so well that it's uncomfortable. When you join Senua on her quest, it is as one of a cast of voices that exist within her head, all seemingly independent, yet aware of some connection to Senua. You as the player join this world, having to listen and determine your own judgments of these voices that have existed seemingly forever, and are swept into this chaos so effortlessly that you may even be unaware of your own existence as another voice within Senua's head. And yes, the game is not listening to the things you may be saying or thinking, but you have a direct impact on Senua as much as the other voices do. After all, you're controlling her movements and deciding her path, just as the other voices influence her decisions, or rather you, because all of you are just fragmented parts of Senua. The opening scene is drawn out to roughly 7 minutes. 7 minutes as you gently float along the river with very little other than the credits to view and minor bits of the world to learn about through the voices in Senua's head. I believe such an emphasis was put on the length of this intro in an age where the "get to the action now" mantra dominates, because the creators want us to focus on what's happening and not only immerse ourselves in the world, but hopefully realize, and maybe not now, maybe not immediately, but definitely upon reflection, that everything we are going to be seeing in this world is through the eyes of our hero, Senua. One of the biggest controversies to be talked about at the launch of this game was the permanent death feature, that all your progress would be lost if you let Senua's rot reach her head from dying too often. As it was discovered that this feature was actually non-existent, many people felt it was a cheap trick used to build suspense in areas that could have otherwise had very punish-free fights. But what I think so many people missed was the brilliance behind this plan. As we reach the climax of this game, we begin to unfold the disturbing nature of Senua's life. The lies her father told her about her condition and the disease or rot he convinced her existed because of it.
You're a liar!
We learn, as Senua does, that this was all just a trick of the mind that has taken her time and perspective to understand. And with that, she feels cheated and angry, but also somewhat free as she enters the final fight with Hela.
You created this darkness!
You as the player get the rare experience of feeling exactly what Senua is feeling on an incredibly personal level that exists beyond your connection to the character. You learn here that the rot was a lie, and by extension, the permanent death feature, a lie. But this information came from the game, in text that has conditioned us to trust it, to know these are the rules since it's not in the world of the game. But it is, because we are seeing the world through Senua's mind. Although affecting you for very different reasons at this moment, you and Senua are learning that everything you thought you knew because someone you trusted told you was a complete fabrication. Of course, you will feel cheated, who wouldn't? But more importantly, this information is here to liberate you, to set you free from the stress of losing all you have worked for if you happen to make just a little mistake. What's beautiful is that it comes at a moment in the game when you are forced to die in order to progress. But with this knowledge, it is not a stressful event. As Dillion said, you are able to look death in the eye and embrace it as a friend.
Let go.
As you succumb to the enemies in the end and confront Hela with the ultimatum that she return to you your loved Dillion or kill you, Hela grabs your blade, the one you fought so many trials to wield, and kills you. But this was never Hela you were seeking out. This was all a creation in your mind to cope with the loss of someone you loved more than anything and could not bear to let go of. After all, you, a Celtic warrior, are traveling a Norse underworld. The gods of men who raided your tribes and killed your Dillion. Why would Dillion, another Celt, go to another god's underworld? And even if he did, how would she possibly retrieve him from his fate? In the trauma of seeing her loved one brutally murdered, I believe Senua created a world combining bits and pieces of the gods she knew, Norse or Celtic, physical forms of the Vikings she hated for her to fight, and a goddess, Hela. One who could take the form of the darkness inside of her, the darkness that was the lies her father told her about her own life, the darkness that was the Vikings who killed her love, and finally the darkness that was her, consumed with denial that she could lose someone so unbelievably important to her. This quest was never going to be about saving Dillion. He was gone, and somewhere deep down Senua knew this, but the hardest battles are fought within the mind. And that is because what Senua is fighting against all this time was herself, the part of her that she envisioned as Hela. But in the end, this is the part of her that needed to win, that was always going to win. Hela stabbing Senua at the end is the culmination of Senua's grief. She has fought tooth and nail to save Dillion, to bring him back from the grave, but in the end, she is finally able to accept it. The darkness that is a life without Dillion is allowed to take control. And Senua is finally able to say goodbye. Reflecting on this incredibly heavy experience, I found myself very emotional. Something affected me far beyond Senua's journey, and the answer to why came with this question. Why was it so hard to say goodbye to Dillion? My answer to that question came from somewhere in my own darkness. I have dealt with depression as long as I can remember. Unprovoked periods of sadness and dark thoughts clouded my mind at a very young age. As I grew older, I began learning about it and being able to identify its presence and deal with it successfully, even when anxiety became a more prominent factor. And even though I'd like to think I have, in a way, beat it and developed the mental stamina to not allow it to consume my life, there's always been something in the back of my mind I could never overcome. With depression being a part of the way my mind worked, I saw myself as broken. Bits and pieces of my mind that just weren't wired right and would never be that way. Some disease I could even pass on to my children if I'd had any. So why would Senua sacrifice everything, go to hell and back to try to bring back Dillion? Well, all Senua's life, she was made to believe she was diseased, a burden to the world, but Dillion let her see differently because he saw her differently. With any darkness, there must also be light. Dillion saw Senua's light, and he loved her for it. For the first time, Senua was able to see something she thought was broken inside of her as something beautiful. Something she could not only be loved for in spite of, but something that she could be loved for because of. For someone to see your faults, your biggest insecurities, and see them as strengths is a feeling that's irreplaceable. Dillion was a beacon of light in a world that was so dark. He showed Senua she was not diseased at all, and that she was in fact special. Senua's story has forced me to relook at the way I see things, the way I define myself. Just because you are different, it doesn't mean you are broken. It just means you need to change the way you see the darkness inside of you.